Yeah.
It's the Flow Friday Night Sports Show, and time for us now to bring in from Flow News 24, Karl Carrington. How are you?
Very good, Jason. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Women's sport up and about. We've got W League going on, AFLW as well. Ellis has passed the torch over to you. He's just sitting here daggers straight through you at the moment. So I think he had some things he wanted to say about this. But let's start with W League. And before we get stuck into the results at home, can we just talk about Caitlin Foord for a moment? Now, this woman is a star, a Matilda, scoring goals galore at the moment with Arsenal in the UK. There's nothing this woman can't do. She mightn't be Sam Kerr, but, well, gee whiz, every side needs a Caitlin Foord, particularly at international level, and Arsenal are loving having her at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned Sam Kerr on last week's show with the Flow Man about her goings with Chelsea and how she's doing so well. So it's really good to see another Aussie doing so well overseas at such a prestigious club like Arsenal and Caitlin Foord.
That's right. Of course, if you go all the way back to 2011, she started playing in the World. She played in the World Cup, 2011 FIFA Women's World Cup at just 16 years of age. Can you believe that? Absolute star. Now, let's go back to W League action. And if we have a quick look at the table, we notice Sydney on top, followed by Brisbane Roar, followed by our very own Adelaide United. It's good to see the girls from the Reds up there. They look like they will play finals now, and they've never done that before.
No, Adelaide United are flying, and they had a real test this past weekend against Sydney, and they overcame it with flying colours, beating them 2-0. It was a really strong showing in Dylan Holmes' last game before she leaves to go to Swedish champions BK Häcken. So it was a really good showing from them, and yeah, they're sitting in third at the moment and should well and truly play finals.
Other matches, at least the Melbourne Victory women can have a win. They were too good on Thursday night for Western Sydney, beat them 1-0. I just love twisting the knife when it comes to Melbourne Victory. I hope there's some fans out there from Melbourne Victory listening. I'm sure there is in Victoria. Canberra United 4 beat the Brisbane Roar 1. This was going back to last week, and gee whiz, Canberra United are up and about.
Yeah, massive upset, really. Brisbane Roar is still sitting in second, so for Canberra United to come and beat them so convincingly was a real show of what they're about, and they'll hopefully be playing finals as well. Just touching on Melbourne Victory, similar their compatriots in the A-League men's competition are struggling as well, so both Melbourne sides are really struggling in the A-League this year.
Perth Glory are, they are the cellar dwellers. They may be the worst W League team in history.
Possibly, and it just goes to show, again, another Western Australian. I don't want to sort of put down the Western Australians, but
no wonder he's staring daggers at you.
The West Coast are sort of struggling as well in the AFLW, so Perth Glory are just following suit to their crosstown rivals.
Well, I'm not sure who they drew with earlier in the year, but they've got 1 premiership point from 7 starts, Perth Glory, so they are no good in the W League. Let's have a look at AFLW. We were into week 6 last weekend. It all got underway on Friday night where North Melbourne pantsed Richmond, beat them easy.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was the highest scoring game, I believe, from an AFLW side, with the Crows beating the Suns, so a real showcase of what they're about this year. In other results, the Demons upset St Kilda, the Blues beat Geelong by 30 points, and then you had that massive loss by West Coast to Fremantle by nearly 60 points,
gee whiz.
Which just puts a dampener on their side, because they did beat Gold Coast last week in their first win for the competition since their joining of the competition, I believe. So, yeah, it was really sad for West Coast to go down so convincingly after such a good result the previous week.
Interestingly enough, Perth Glory higher on the W League ladder than the West Coast Eagles are in the AFLW ladder. Perth Glory 9th on the ladder out of 9 teams. The Eagles, of course, 12th out of 14. Ellis Kellius is not impressed at the moment, never mind. The Crows flying, how about that? Look at that top 4. Not sure you would have picked Collingwood at the start of the year to be undefeated, but Fremantle, Brisbane, the Crows, and then you go back to North Melbourne and Melbourne, who I reckon played the game of the AFLW competition. I reckon the best one I've seen a little while ago. So top 6 clubs are actually really, really good quality outfits, and the good news is for fans, I think they're going to be playing each other quite a bit in the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like it, with Melbourne taking on the Crows this week, and the Kangaroos playing Western Bulldogs, who sit in 7th, just outside the top 6. So it's all to play for in the AFLW.
Top of the ladder clash, of course, coming up in week 8. I think we've got, a series of buys or something like that coming up, but they've got it all over the place here in the draw. It is this Sunday. It'll be Brisbane and Collingwood, and that will be an absolute rip snorter, that one, being played in Brisbane, I believe.
Yes, that's the game of the round, and it'll be a real test for Brisbane to see how they can come up against the league leaders in Collingwood, and Fremantle obviously playing Carlton in another sort of finals-like game, with Carlton sitting just outside the top 6 as well.
All right, moving away from women's sport, and a great interview, I've got to say, by Clayton Bester, talking to the crew from Softball Australia. You can check that out on our podcast, and you can check this out on our podcast as well, wherever good podcasts are stored. And let's talk now about AFL, the men's. Look, some interesting stuff coming out this week, Karl. I wanted to get your thought on this. We've got 2 players just before the start of a season, not nearing the back end of a season, but just at the start of the season. They've come out and they've said, look, we need some time away from the game. So Paddy Ryder at St Kilda and Sam Powell-Pepper, one of your boys at Port Adelaide, have both come out and said they need some time away to go and sort themselves out. What do you make of this? I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, as a Port Adelaide fan, I think it's definitely interesting, and I think the AFL, maybe also the club in Port Adelaide, haven't done a great job of giving the fans sort of an insight into why they've listed as personal reasons for Sam Pepper. I know he's also recovering from a broken hand, so that might come into it. But yeah, it's odd how the fans are sort of left in the dark, and I'm not sure if the AFL maybe need to step in and make the club give more insight into why certain players leave at particular times and why they take leave. But obviously, if it's the personal reasons primarily, then that needs to be respected, and I think it should be by the fans and all involved.
Look, the most interesting thing I find with this is, I understand that 2020 was a stressful year for a lot of the players, and that's fine. But, I mean, we're making assumptions here that we're dealing with mental health issues, which is why the clubs are so tight-lipped about why they're taking time away. But this is the problem with this. We're making assumptions. Other people on social media are making other assumptions. They're making assumptions about drug strikes that probably don't exist. The tinfoil hat brigade get together on social media and they make up all kinds of stories. And, all of a sudden things get worse for the likes of Ryder and Sam Powell-Pepper. So I'm not sure about how being so tight-lipped about what the actual reasons are behind it actually helps the players anyway. Yeah,
I definitely see that point, especially with Paddy Ryder. He's had problems in the past, I believe. So for them to be so tight-lipped sort of, puts a bit of skepticism and a bit of doubt in the fans' mind as to why is the actual reason that they're going on leave, I suppose.
Either way, we wish them both well, and I think it's the way of the future now. We know a lot more about mental health than we ever have before, so we're going to see a lot more of that. We know a lot more about concussion than we ever do before, or ever have before as well, Karl. And I wanted to ask you this one to finish with. Looks like the coaches in the AFL are getting together now, and they're pushing hard for a concussion sub, basically. If someone gets concussed during a game, they want a 23rd player that they can pull off the bench, almost like the old red vest. Remember those days?
Yep, absolutely.
Short-lived they were, but a genuine concussion sub, your thoughts on that?
I can see both good and bad. Bad, firstly, in reference to the sub rule that we used to have. It sort of left players, I guess, in doubt, and I think they'd probably pull the pin on it too early, and as if the player was even having a concussion sort of related head injury or not actually being concussed, they could pull the pin and have the sub come into the game. There's a fine line between whether the sub would be allowed or not, depending on how severe the concussion or the head-like injury would be. It's definitely good in the term of a player being substituted, and it helps the team out in the long run. Not having a player down for 3/4 of a game when they could be winning at that stage, and they can could end up losing that game because they were a man down in their rotation. So I can see good and bad in both scenarios.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Good thoughts. Carl Carrington, you can see his work on flownews24.com.au. Great having you in the studio, mate. Always great catching up for a chat. We'll do it again next week. Enjoy the footy over the weekend.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jason.